Ana diri tsangwa la nga ru de le chi ta diri ta yang zu ya tsam de yang zu ya an de jo chi ji an ji ge chang shu sim bi no be chang wa se di a di ko lang zu ya an chi yin che re ji sang na ga wo shi ra chung song san.
First of all, good morning to everyone. I'm very pleased to meet you all here, and especially that we've gathered for such an auspicious reason, and that's to hear teachings on and reflect on the meaning of Lama Atisha's text, the Bodhisattvas' Jewel Garland.
Da George said, and Yama and Yahar Nalendralaya and the Jiki Dina de Lama Gerachimbo Keba Pulujuaji Yunten Chembo Shire, and Dinia and Jiki that Belia page and the Janju Lamdre song, and then Man Jig Lamdringi change in by Jik Gabelia. Kaba Mangujo, Daddy Bardo, and Jiggy Sangi, Temple Univo, Dusin Belia, Kabajan, Daddy Yahanma, Dusiade, Georgie getting Chattery, Jeza, Georgie, Jaju Lemdresun, then Man, Kaba Mangujo, and Diloma, and then Man, as Dine, and Jerumichi, Lam Rim Chembo, Lamdring Java, Lamdring Chembo, then Margin, Lamdring Chembo, the Jingda Chembo, Chumosiada, and then again, Saja. Geju Nima Risuma Chepigi and the Jig Lamdring Jawa and Lamdring Yamden Jeta, Sonji Dadibado, Dus Yamden Jedi, Georgie, Bear Masiki, that Jinlap Charter.
The author of this text is someone held in great esteem in the Tibetan tradition. Atisha was an Indian Pandit who graduated from, who was from the great monastery of Nalanda, and he had a tremendous reputation for both knowledge and the integration or the realization based on that knowledge. And he, in his latter years, he was invited to and moved to Tibet, where he composed a seminal text called The Lamp on the Path to Enlightenment. And this text served as a basis for the entire Lam Rim tradition that would later follow. And the Lam Rim tradition is to be found in all four schools of Tibetan Buddhism, that of the Geluk, of the Sakya, of the Nyingma, of the Kagyu. And perhaps most well known, certainly in our tradition, is that of the Lam Rim Chemo, the great Lam Rim, composed by Je Rinpoche Lama Tsongkhapa. And in his lifetime, Lama Atisha, through his teachings, he spread the complete and correct Buddha Dharma throughout Tibet. So for these reasons, it's really being a seminal teacher within the Tibetan tradition, almost a foundational teacher. He is held in the highest of regard.
Atisha Center said George Koronki, Sen, Ming Daji, and a Choso Chattery, the names and the Marazuki. That didn't, and today George Korongo soon beget, and you see me the rich hour setting on the Tinti change your bed, Massey, and the Kokobia Pushuches.
And that he is still held in such reverence is shown that even our little Dharma Center here is named after him. So really we are truly fortunate to have this time together to come to know and integrate one of his texts.
And then,
the name of the text is the Bodhisattvas' Jewel Garland.
Jidindena, the nobles Tinasan Churchina, Dorje Palam, the Sierra Tang, we say the Chagorova, Jisandin Noburishe, and then Dilet, this year by now to the Kadru was around to Tungankare in a D, Delet in a Beju, did in any to war, what Sayatoya, Dan Chick Paso, Chamia, Soso Koya, Major, Kare, Vine, Shal Roche, Vene, D on the Jitugorva. On and Dinashi that the Dinma, Janju Simbe Nobu Chawa, Janju Simbe Nyamnichibe, Lamji Rimba, Desolia, and Lamji Rimba Tiki Nobu, the Chibare Delatene, Sosuki Dungasia, Diki to your Shenji Dungasia, and Diki to your Chazan, Delatin to Banza, Nobu Set. Chawa labdi on the Chawa san denege to chune chik ba bang de mangbu shoro denege da nyamlen che ge rimba ro mangbu chi do chune bang de she yue ban zan de Chawa sa chi do chune sungo de chen de le ya Chawa la ne denege mangbu do wa de ko ra de je sa mangbu chik jel jim bang de mangbu ro ba je sa no bi Chawa la de denege nyamlen che ge rimba mangbu yue ba de sungo da bang de yo re so de ma da.
To look then at the meaning of the title, Bodhisattva's Jewel Garland. So just like a jewel, if one has a number of diamonds or some gold, then in dependence on this wealth, one can fulfill all one's material requirements and live a comfortable life. So similarly, here in this context, a jewel refers to the jewel of this teaching because its independence on what is contained in this brief text, that one is able to accumulate the causes for lasting happiness as well as eliminate the causes that would otherwise lead to suffering. So that's the meaning of the term jewel, something that is precious because of the result that can follow from it. And a garland, so a synonym for garland would be a mala, and Genna held up his mala. So a mala or a rosary contains many individual beads. So similarly, there are many individual trainings here that as one counts on a rosary, many repetitions. Similarly, through training one's mind in these many individual trainings, again and again, repeatedly, one will be able to give rise to the jewel of the Dharma within oneself.
Jenju simpi norbi chanwa la de jenju simpi ke nyamlen che ki da dene ki rimba mangbu chi do yore sior da donda la karusung go re sene da ngarang zo chasan dewa de ba da dunga mi de ba chi ba re chasan ngan zo dewa de ngan zo lo du bu go re di dewa du go re dunga de me ba se go re chasan da dewa yong ya la dewi gyuchi kanis tubo dewa druptang shingo korba dewa druptang de shingo dunga se yale dunga setang de shingo korba chesan den ma che nga dewa drupya dam dewa gugore chesan dewa drup gugore chesan dewa yala dine che gore se bege da dewa drupye ge tablam de tingore nga zo le dunga yong ju yong gore dunga gugu ma dunga se gugore da dunga se ya dine che gore se be du se dunga setang tablam de tingore dene ya digi drupta da So
all of us here, what we have in common and what we also have in common with all beings everywhere is we have a deep impulse to experience only happiness and never to experience any kind of difficulty or frustration or problem at all. So this is a deep wish that we all have in common. To achieve happiness, one needs to identify the causes that lead to happiness and accumulate those causes. Similarly, one needs to identify the causes that lead to suffering and eliminate those causes. In addition to recognizing those causes, one needs to know how to accumulate the causes that lead to happiness and eliminate the causes that lead to suffering. One needs to know the method or the technique. And that is what is contained in this text. So the many trainings that are included in here that need to be cultivated repeatedly over a sustained period, so the jewels that are represented on the mala, these are the causes for happiness, as well as the methods to eliminate suffering.
Zada jugi digi drubye da dunga se dele ya tablam ma sona da nga jugi jiden bana da bengu ji benjo ro sa shi twingen drup je di thone digi drubye chik den ya jigi neba la cha neba nga ju jige dunga se le menjue je ya da an kala trading je ya da an de ne ge an ji lu je je da di thone nga ju digi dunga se ya da digi drup da chik nga ju jiden bege da jawa na beje nga ju ma shu beje di dan ko ro ba da di chi ngobi thone nga ju digi drup da dunga se de cha ko re chesan digi nga ju digi ya go drutu ko se ne gap dewa de se jung re ma do dunga ma go le digi tempu ju den ja ge dewa drup tu go ma re ane ji men jue che da lu ji che ba da de ni ge nga ju che le de ne 강아 뛰었어서 저것도 받아 차별 둥하다 되는 게 뛰어서 세 투그리 마도 띵기 맞아 둥하디 매바 쇠 투고 말 세상 디 tablam di jidang anzu beje tanggo de ina digi tingi dunga se tuya de tingi digi tup tuya ji yunggo mare di meba za tang anzu ge gidina dewa ni dewa yoya da dunga se zawa ki ne yong mogoya di meba soya di ganes beje tanggo resen nang samlo thone beje ta samlo gyuwa ta je samlo thone gom 제제 장도르 제제 삼로 장도르 제제 무인이 수대 하고와 제제 안도시네 저기 삼로 톤이 배제 다제 안 동아세다 디기 주베이나 디기 땡기 대와 죽투고 그래 동아 자오기니 매바 쇠투 그래 해야지 나 능한주 디난마 난 지셰 조 샘감 리뷰 톤에 낭 삼로 규와 다네 디기 죽다다 동아세다디 아니 어순고 그래다
What I've just mentioned about identifying causes for the happiness we desire and accumulating them and eliminating or overcoming the causes that otherwise would lead to suffering, this is not something unique to the Buddhist religion, but it's in fact how we all live our lives, how everyone lives their lives, because we all want happiness. Where we believe that engaging in certain activities will lead to happiness, we do so. And where we believe that engaging in something will lead to problems, we avoid doing so. So, for example, we know from society that if we eat a nutritious diet and we live a healthy lifestyle, our life is more likely to be healthy and long. And in many other areas, we know we need to go to work, earn a salary, so that we have the financial means to live a comfortable life. But we also know, so whilst we engage in these techniques to accumulate the causes for happiness and eliminate the causes for suffering, we know we have yet to achieve happiness that is lasting and stable. Because every time we do experience some temporary happiness, it is only ever temporary. Problems once again emerge. Difficulties, unwanted situations once again emerge. And sometimes they seem to fall down on us like rain. And in this way, our desire for happiness is never fulfilled because all happiness we experience doesn't last. So the techniques or the methods that we learn from society are all about achieving material comforts and trying to achieve happiness and overcome problems through looking at the external world. And whilst we need to pay attention to this, at the same time we also need to look at our inner world, our way of thinking. And it's this that we need to develop. And because through transforming our way of thinking that is currently mistaken, that is not in accordance with reality, transforming our way of thinking into one that is in accordance with reality, lasting happiness can be achieved. A happiness that is free from even a moment of temporary discomfort. A happiness that is lasting and stable.
당은 된마 아니 한가로 송거선 야가르기도 세월다 야가르기도 난 야가르기도 세디 니 순간디 니마 베기 로자웨 송거래 야가르기도 세데다 야가르기 나라야 아니 디기 페이지에 참가하려고 하시는 보디사토 마니 아왈리스라고 해지래 지상 야가르기 나봐.
What we don't have this in our text. Again, is now turning to the text, but the very next line is from the original Tibetan translator who translated the composition from Sanskrit into Tibetan, and wherein he mentions the name of the text in Sanskrit.
Bodhisattvas 자주 sembalagoro manilan norvulagoro awalisin chanwasi. 지상다 chanwa awalisin chanwa. 지상 Bodhisattvas 자주 semba manilan 다 norvu awalisin chanwa. 지상 다 자주 sembi norvu chanwa선 백일 수교도 다다 차거로. 알레.
So the title of the text in Sanskrit is Bodhisattva Mani Avali. So Bodhisattva, we have here the Bodhisattva, Mani being the jewel, and Avali being a garland.
다 베게도 전주심에 너왜 차와서 쉬가 나지. 나데네 다디 로자베게 송아. 다데는 마 다디 송고래. 다 조지기 투지 심볼라 차살로 오소래. 다 투지 심볼라 차살로 라마남라 차살로 데빌하라 차살로 오세네. 다 당보 조지기 된다 너비 채와데 마송예리야 아니 그런 야 투지 심볼라 차살로 오세네. 파파 젠지실이야 차사와래. 라마 남라 차솔로라도 난 그런기 다 라마 라마라야 차사와제 안 데벨하라 차살로세 온당보 차사와도 송고래.
Then in the Tibetan text, the very next line then mentions the title in Tibetan, which we have here translated into English, Bodhisattvas Jewel Garland. And thereafter, before the actual text starts, then Lama Atisha composes a salutation. So the salutation we have here as homage to great compassion, homage to the teachers, homage to the faith divinities. In the first line, Lama Atisha is offering salutation or homage or prostration to great compassion or to Chenrezig. The second line, he's offering homage to his teachers, to his lamas. And the third line, he's offering homage to the deities in which we rest our faith.
지상 투지 진보라 차서로세 투지 진보스의 파파 젠제시 거래. 지상 파파 젠제시디 저기 닝지를 하래서 오다 먼저 닝지. 지상 전주심에 냠는 제발라 전주심 귤에 끼어발라 잠 닝지의 양주 귤에 끼. 잠 닝지 텔라 때는 전주심 귤에 끼고 거라. 근데 인자 당아 저기 전주심 냠는 제발라 닝지 냠는 제발 녀 닝지 하고 공고 닝지 하고 준비나 된 전주심 끼도 저 닝지 세대 semja tamju dunga dana sibi trawa sho sembe samlo di niji si denigi chuma mayin ba chele niji se go wa le de chuma mayin ba de niji le di jesa papa chende si di niji la de jesa papa chende si ya an cha che je nga ju gi deba chi molam ja ba ina nga ju le niji ke ke le ya ne le la yung go jesa niji la yin za jo ji gi da janju simbe ge lam ji nyamnen sunguyo ba za da niji la papa chende si la cha sa lo so tu ji chen bo la cha sa lo se de di sungo le.
The term great compassion, this refers to the deity of compassion, to Chenrezig. And the reason that the first line is an offer of homage or salutation or prostration to the deity of compassion, Chenrezig, is because in order to become a bodhisattva, one has to cultivate love and compassion within oneself to a level where they arise spontaneously or are uncontrived. They don't need to be intentionally generated. The meaning of compassion is the sincere aspiration that may all sentient beings, without exception, be completely freed from suffering. And when this wish arises within one in an uncontrived manner, then one has uncontrived compassion. And one needs to develop this further then into bodhicitta later. But the reason then for in the very first line, homage being offered to great compassion or to Chenrezig, is because through the practitioner turning to the deity of compassion for inspiration, this then serves as a cause to make it easier to cultivate love and compassion within oneself.
지상 tukje 쳔보라 tuk labdio anzo sem nanglo sem de shesujina tuk so shesa majuna do samlo so sem sigro je labdio ningzo jeba na shin zo shigore 쳔보라 de be mase gyachimbo sigore gare gyachimbo na tuk di gyachimbo garesne semjen tamje gyachimbo semjen tamje semjen ganeshine di tamje don달 sanyigo dunga thana sembige samloti 지상 삼모드 빼 마시고 조와 심전 탐제를 삼모 따제 심전 탐주 동안에 자나 선배 삼모자 삼모드 빼 마시기 같이 보시고 싶으세요. 지상 삼모 같이 되네기 같이 뭐 냠는 나제 냠는 탈침배 되네기 삼로 상지 투지 첨보고 안에 되네기 상지기 규라유배 투지 첨보 디기 안에 수수마 젠데지 그 수게 나바 된제 안에 나바 샤디가 하들이야 안에 차차로서도 내가 결혼계 냠는 제제 투규를 여반 하신지 내가 되는지 투투버 쇼스면 영어 쇼스면 비게 디말람 제고 와치나 말람서 대 차슬로서 디송거던달라.
The Tibetan for great compassion is tukje chempo. So the first word is tuk. So tuk is the honorific word for mind. So we can think of it as mind. Then je is a as another honorific term, which can be translated as a king or as a lord. So we may know it from J. Rinpoche for the precious lord or Lama Tsongkhapa. Then the third term, Chenpo. So this means great. So to put the three into English, we could have mind, we could have lord or king, and we could have great. So what then the meaning of this is to develop one's mind in a great manner and in a way that it is a supreme or a king of minds. So this then refers to having as an object all sentient beings. This shows how vast or great the mind is. And in order to generate such a vast and great mind, a mind that is a king amongst minds, one makes the salutation to Chenrezig. So Chenrezig appears in form before one, as a visualization before one, and one offers homage or salutation or prostration to Chenrezig, that one may develop this great king of minds.
Lama namla chasalo sede George koronge lama lama mangboyo chesa lama selengba chi George koron janju semki ani nyamlengi rimba tangbo lama de lama selengba zin shuwa chesa lama selengba la soba lama selengba la koron lama mangbo ti chasan ya ani kyong jugi nyamlen jeni na ji nyamlen na ji kyong jugi le tu gyule yende deni gyo ba na shin ngi ya deni ge nyamlen jeje kyong tukule yende dida bo jinge gyule ge tubarage jingi la ro jesa ge tuba sho sebek dos chen sungor chasalase.
Then the second line, homage is offered to the teachers. Teachers here, or lamas here, refer to those of the author of the text, to Atisha's own lamas, such as Solingpa and many others. So the purpose for offering homage to his teachers is to request their blessings, so that he can, the text that goes, that the composition of the text fulfills his aspiration, that it is of supreme benefit to all beings. And requesting benefits here, requesting blessings means requesting inspiration, that he is inspired to compose this text in a way that brings greatest benefit.
Ana debil hala chasalo side da debil ha se de jidang jugi debi debeche se gi yu anel hale la siguro la se kugure jidang chebe na andele ya ane jige jugi malhamangbo yungure dele ya ane jige jitim ba la da jitim le debil hala so ba da dine yunguro wa ine da dadi ka su debil hala chasalo side joje koronge namgyuni ya zo ridem den den se gi la 안 지준 드라마라 소바다 지준 드라마다 안 바바 가서 투지 젠제시 안두스 안에 지준 드라마 젠제시라서 온 데네기 야 코로나주기 넘기 라마 코롱기 다 라마 소소라나로 수수이네 이름대게 조를 하려를 연구로와 어쨌든 데네기를 하 지준 드라마다 바바 젠제시라서 어델이야 차책이 인스코라 제가 미 냠렌제라 코로나주 투교를 여바나 디진나 셰바 지바다 라 이름 코로나주기 진 냠렌 나제 데네기 투교를 유비게 연된 데이터 중에 교래야 데네기 개와는 진기라로 제가 숨으로.
And in the third line, Lama Atisha is turning to the deities in which he rests his faith. So from our side, we can turn towards here, the deities that we feel a connection with. But in Atisha's case, he would turn towards Tara and Chenrezig. And in offering homage to the deities in which he rests his faith, he's requesting inspiration and blessings so that the qualities that abide in their continuum flow into him, and he is able to cultivate those self-same qualities in himself. So in turning towards the deities in which he has faith, is turning for blessing, or in other words, for inspiration, to cultivate those self-same qualities that they possess within himself.
Lama koronge chasawa de chasa sedire. Da denma dangan zulia labje ngone denma kozugo tedum tamje banja shin dubla ne den jesu jase.
So first, just to say as an aside, in Tibetan texts, even in verses, all the lines follow one from the other. They're not broken up into verses like we have. So going then on to the next couplet of lines, discard all lingering doubts and strive with dedication in your practice.
Denjuru, Kari Zombaina Dambo, Cha Sawadia, Yu Kebaji, and Gonjo, the Lamalia, Cha Sawa de Jobo, Jisa Cha Sa, Yapsujo, Yamjo Jet, Cha Sa, Dinigi, Jenan, got Mazumio, Zomiadi, Denju Zomiadi, Zumbo, Dambone, Dini Cha Sa, the Gaimavaja, Mazum Shadi, Mati Shadi, Pashipachi Mare. Dambo Cha Masewachi, Cha Sawa Maimbaji, Cha Masewaji, Denju Zumba, the Halam Yomare, Ya Kevata, Dini Begi, Lami Keva, Denju Zumbi, the Karizumbi, Nielia. Yu Kebache, Lama, Lada, Lama, Chache, and Chasa, Jamroche, and Dushin and Mitiere, Dinjima, Chisungore.
So we just concluded there then the salutation. So all texts from the Indian tradition and following from this, the Tibetan tradition, start with a salutation at the beginning. It may be possible that a text has been composed without such, but I've yet to see it, and I would really be surprised. So this is a tradition that to create virtue and overcome obstacles at the outset of a text, a verse of salutation or homage is offered.
Samlo kan siligire ndi thone ngazu le kyön garu yongure yenden garu yongure se ngazu samlo nala ngazu samlo de ngoche chigorda samlo di jeba na den shongure di jeba samlo de corona di yongure se samlo ngoche chigor 지산 태som 탐제 빵자신 세도 아주 태som 세데 땅 아주게 베네 개위 자와럽 집에는 어다디 제네디기나 맨아선바 어다디 상이 제나 가는 차기 제마제나 가는 차기 했으면 내 디리 지나게 레가디 되는 요사 차사 말 딘지 선배 되니게 삼로야 태좀으로 망보 끼에제 아주 개위 자와를 주야리야 바시시고래 그래서 adam 디네자 아니 태좀 세야지 삼로 디니기 태좀 깨봐야나 맞아 내가 가르쳐비네 디기 태좀 디기 레가디 주야리야 바시지기리제 제자는 인자 때 어당아 어달로 제마 제외나 안직 다데지 제투사 이나 특이나 메나다 다나직 제제바나 지금 레가디게 파차기 말해서 말다 다직 강아 책이랬으면 되니게 삼 태좀 도과게 봐야나 개위 자와 두트고 말 남사 되니게 고급 라디오 갑라 맞아 개위 자와던 주변 님네 제 고급 라디오 갑라 되니 태좀 균에 파 마게 봐지 남사 고 주변 님네 제알이바 배 nendenjene bezu chimbi gone bezu chene jeso jasen za chimbo dirin gogop denege gogop rawa be maso yakbure da dirin majene gedi jigir jamana gogop ra khakure samje lamsadi jubadil ya nyamlen che goresen juba nenden jeso ja sidi denege nyamlen che be za chimbo ge chimbo nende jene nendenjene je gorese orde.
Discard all lingering doubts and strive with dedication in your practice. Doubts are something that we have a lot of familiarity with. Shall I do this or shall I do that? What do I want to achieve in my life? Is it perhaps, do I want to go in this direction or that direction? And how to do so? Is this a good method or that a good method? Not only does this disturb our mental peace because we're in a quandary, but it holds us back. It prevents us from moving forward. In our spiritual context, so we have experience of how doubt can be an obstacle to progressing in our life. It can leave us without energy, without direction. And similarly, in our spiritual practice, to the extent that we have doubt, we have an obstacle to our spiritual endeavors. So in a general sense, we need to strive at the accumulation of virtue and the elimination of the causes that would lead to suffering. But to the extent that we have doubt in terms of what the causes of virtue are, the causes of happiness are, and how to engage in them, to the extent that we have doubt, we will hold ourselves back, or we will be held back. So here, doubt serves to obstruct us applying ourselves in the accumulation of virtue, in training our minds. So how we need to overcome doubt in order, as we see in the second line, in order to be able to strive with dedication in our practice. So here we need to reflect on the supreme preciousness of the opportunity that we have achieved with this life and having met the Dharma, its tremendous rarity. And through reflecting on the preciousness and rarity and the impermanence of this opportunity, we will overcome our doubts and be able to strive with dedication in transforming our minds, in accumulating the causes for happiness.
Derin channel de chike some de that dene yagochurada je samdena and de said yagoragina mena and kala de yagoragina mena and namshire kana kanga tigina masambi dogora sana da yoyale ya bashi chegro dine za channel juge semta chue 태좀 dine mewaje and kom derin an juge chike de samdeale gabochine bezuchine yoadi So
perhaps, having left your homes and come here, and you engaging in this retreat, so you have this tremendous opportunity, you've recognized its importance, but if the mind is distracted to thinking about, the weather's not ideal, it's maybe a little warm, or my accommodation isn't as comfortable as my home, or the food is not entirely with my liking, this serves to turn our mind or keep our mind away from being on the causes of virtue, on the Dharma. And this kind of doubt in terms of a mind that is wavering between the path of virtue and the ordinary mundane path, this serves as an obstacle to ourselves applying ourselves completely to the accumulation of virtue, to transforming our mind into the Dharma. The text continues. Thoroughly relinquish drowsiness, mental dullness, and laziness, and strive always with joyous perseverance.
And the lelo john ada de jonsama that nyo sazin ane jike lelo cheje ane kanga juge geju duya ya bashires jezang zo ni le chape chaba da lelo chike ba ina geju duya la ba chegor bene shoge ro inara gidina zuita geju ro chitu je no ada in des ni hu de ni de jiu shu du san be da ni des hu gin da and this ni ku je le ya jigin san ba da ni ku che ne du su de ni mang wo ku de to de ane ko Lobsang Dorje kom nyamne cheada gechur chedi jusudi parse chigores tada ya lelo se de lelo ada di nyofsta just chetu samarasim big lelo kena ani gewe jawat bezu che chuptu mar lelo dia parchires ta ya jinga juge 지게 계획차를 아다디 제모로지 변에 제모로다 좀 셴녀야 지기 되니기 차지 어디니지 야고슈 데더스 년기 인다팅 어떠스 계주제 제마 제와선 비기 파치와나 제가 디소 레로 차와 자왕안신 레로 자와디서 충충줄이야 이게 차바기에제 하는 아주 계획차 주야디 바 쇼고래 고급 쇼고 제가 되니기 니후야다 무보게 레로디 얘기 먼저 기회 자와 두비알이야 되버게래 되버 dumbe게래 빠지치고래 제가 대소 삼로 있나 대소 되게 하는 아주 기회 자와 둘라 빠시레스 삼로 되는 일라 차베 차바다 레로 삼네 된 레벨은 빠시 차고 제가 디 파빵 고래 빵제네 되네 가르치 고르스 레로단 되니기 님보들 따도 준주자서 준주 준비 기회 자와 두버들 다디 되네 고고라 배 야고래 삼 가신 주신 안에 내려야 배수진도 삼 주고 그래지 제가디 따도 준비 배버자스 니 가서 니 목선에 니 구도 못 봐서 가야 돼 매게 고동 책으로 하다 직시하는 되게
Thoroughly relinquish drowsiness, mental dullness, and laziness, and strive always with joyous perseverance. So here again, one is being exhorted to utilize what remains of our life well, of our opportunity well. So here are some obstacles to utilizing our opportunity well are presented. So drowsiness or mental dullness. So this all too often can overwhelm us, leading us to think, for example, oh, right now I'm a little too tired, I need to relax. Or my mind's not quite in the right space, I'll put off doing some meditation or reading some Dharma. And this just leads to a habit of procrastination becoming ever stronger within us. So where we allow ourselves to, when we are maybe not that tired or not that dull, but we rather hold on to that, grasp onto that my tiredness, really I am now too tired. I need to relax. I need to do something else, rather than cultivate the mind of the Dharma in myself. This is an obstacle to our spiritual development. And similarly with laziness, and laziness, of course, has many forms, but in general we can say it's where one is distracted by or distracted towards mundane or worldly activities. For example, where one decides, actually I need to engage in some entertainment. I need to watch some TV, or I need to do something. I want to be entertained. So many of the times when we turn towards entertainment, or we turn towards a need to relax because we're tired or mentally dull, actually this is more going in the direction of an excuse, rather than we are particularly fatigued and need to rest. And this means our opportunity to develop our mind, to become the person that we long to become the person that we have the potential to be, this opportunity is lost. So rather we need to rely on the antidote, and that's presented in the next line. Strive always with joyous perseverance. Joyous perseverance, then, is a mind that recognizes the great opportunity we have and then takes delight in us, generates joy in the opportunity that we have to engage in virtue. In other words, to develop our mind into a virtuous mind. And to persevere in these when obstacles appear before us, such as obstacles of being distracted by worldly affairs, or distracted by fatigue. So here we use our wisdom to determine when we do need to relax, or when it really is just an excuse. And we do so by generating delight in our opportunity and making effort or persevering to make the most of our precious opportunity.
Lelo sayadi nganzo duskarso lelo sayadi kiwi jawala jegi deba maje baje da jinyi majo bajorwa deni samlo di lelo sigo lelo da jesa di jinyi majo baje kiwi jawabene gom jayagi jayalya jinyi majo ba ani jige nye chue nye ya jige nye majo bege deni ki deba medige lelo sigo Lelo said the like church gave it out real jag do me ba jin ma chwa ba che le yo wa de lelo la go wa je sa de kom ja ya de kom jam yin ma de ba an ji chue nya ya le nya yin ma de ba ro ji di lelo le je sa di nya yin ma de ba ji lelo le ba na nya yin ma de ba le na di jing ma pe le ga ro chi ka re na le ga ji le ga de jag do ba ma je na le ga de jing ma wa pen zemo ro che na zemo jing ma chwa ba de ba me ba chu ba na zemo jing ma wa 디나진 레로 개위 자와려야 제게 되버 직진이 맞춰버 놓치어로 디 레로시오 제가 디 바방고래 디 마방바는 아주 개위 자와 줍투 말레스 제가 디 메바서야라 가르치고래라는 다 존주세의 공고래서 존주세 디 레로게 님보래 레버 메바서야 존주세 존주세의 가래라와서 개위 자와들라 배 자게 배 듬바야 고게지 배 야고래 다 디생팅에 디 제고도 선비기 되냐기 듬바들라 존주세 디 제배 거부들라 제가 거부 슈슈바들라 로들라 ane zunri siwa. Chizangan zuki gewe chao de ringi shugo de ya lang che gomgi inda asambi gabu shuyo da chue nyaya gabu shuyo ba na di tinji na ko chue nyaya gom jagu korwa. Chiza dine zangan zuki lelo iki nyembo di zunri sayadi gomgore, zunri gomgore siwa.
In general, we can understand laziness as lacking the wish to do something that one then and there does have the capacity to do. So in a general context, if there's a particular task that one needs to engage in, and one has the capacity then and there to do so, but just doesn't feel like it, that's laziness. We recognize that. For example, perhaps we know we should exercise, but we just don't feel like doing it right now. So we have the capacity. It's not that we are perhaps too fatigued or too busy. We have the capacity, but for whatever reason, we choose not to do so when the capacity is there. That would be laziness. In our context here, when one has the capacity then and there to engage in the accumulation of virtue, for example, meditation or to receive teachings, but one doesn't really have the wish, and then one follows this lack of wish and therefore doesn't engage in the meditation or gives up or doesn't attend the teaching, then this would be an illustration of laziness. The antidote to laziness is joyous perseverance. And the meaning of joyous perseverance is delight in virtue. So laziness is not wishing to engage in something where one can. Joyous perseverance is taking delight in engaging. And in particular in our context, laziness is referring to not engaging in the Dharma, such as meditating or receiving teachings. And then joyous perseverance is taking delight in doing so. And it's called an antidote because certainly there are times when we lack the wish to receive, to go to teachings and receive them, or to stay attentive, or to start meditating, or to stay mentally engaged in meditating. Then we should generate joyous perseverance in us, taking delight in this opportunity we have to meditate now, to receive the teaching now. And we generate delight, and then we persevere. We make effort and continue.
Ni se di nga zo ge wa zhu bie le ba chi cha go le ben de dang nga zo le sam dang de ji ge ya wo ro ba dang nga zo ge da chu zhu ba na nga zo da ji gom jia da ji ge xue xie ge go zu we ben na da nga zo chu zhu ba de jia le ya de ni de ji wo shu da de ni de gin sam be ge ni de ben na ni le cha ja da ni de gin sam be ni de ben na ji ne chu zhu ba dun ba ba yue zhe de ni la ba de ni hu de da xian da zuo 没想到这亚郎去去主办吧，这个给学去给我啥了哇？就像说说的把人你对你回去给我啥有过好的学啥了哇？就像你给把这的用过的是，就像的那张，的那里啊，尊重给你们别开始电梯的人我们家要把的电梯给我注意，别嘛是压过了过好别压过的是，但前面那让卡过的，但电梯给过早全部的议论的这个嘛。 야 우리 선비게 되니게 될야 가시 제게 듬바더니 숙천부진 되니게 제바이나 안 존재되기 개바이나 되니게 일 차바데 파파된 계획이 자왈 죽투고 제사딩 한술 계셔 죽투고 디파인 제사라고 그래지로다.
To give a further illustration, let's say in order to do some meditation before your day starts, you make the commitment, I will now start to get up at 6 in the morning. But then when the morning comes and the alarm goes off at 6 o'clock, you think, oh, this is a little earlier than I would like, maybe 15 minutes more. And you put the alarm off and you fall back to sleep. So of course here what we see is this is an obstacle to meditation. It's an obstacle to cultivating a virtuous mind. So therefore, rather what one should do, when the alarm goes off and the thought comes, oh, not this morning, or maybe just in a few minutes' time, if we are mindful and we recognize that this is an illustration of laziness, we've now heard the antidote is joyous perseverance. So we cultivate joyous perseverance, intentionally generated, thinking to ourselves, actually, I have gained some Dharma knowledge, and now I have the opportunity to integrate that knowledge into my way of thinking through meditation. I'm incredibly fortunate. There are so few people who have this knowledge, and of those who do, not all of them have the wish to get up at 6 in the morning and to develop themselves in this way. We all may have the wish to become better people, but I have the opportunity right now to become that better person. And if I don't take this opportunity now, when will I? If I lose this opportunity now, will I get it again? And in this way, through generating joyous perseverance, we'll do what's difficult, and we'll experience the results, the benefit of doing that.
And 먼저 디소레 전다 시신 바유베스 원벽권이 다수송서 원벽권은 다수송서다 당은 대신에 먼저 가르 모처셔버려나 니다 묵바세디 가야 삼로 가야 먹고 낙톰지 돼야지 묵바시고라데 니구나 묵벌리 낙톰만 차로 묵번 이래 되네 제산이 세다 묵바세 레로 집에나 나ዞ려 자와 개위 자와 주비야라 바시 차고레스 제산디 매바 쇠야려야 님부 가르친 거라서네 개위 자와려야 아니지기 가신 죄신을 존중이 되봐 되니기 된바 존중이 받된 거그래서 배수진의 존중이 냠내 제고레스 디 제반에 대해서 파가게레스 지산 되네 제반에 존중이는 아주 기주 접도 그래서 아디 아주 로 매바 쇠거야 이게 아주게 쇠거야데 레로다 니다 무바티 매바 쇠가 될 님부 가르친 거라 존중 공고레스 디지티 셰바라 당아줄라 가르친 거라서는 당아줄이야 망고 강아 영화에 가르치는 용어는 원비 권리된 리고라서 원비 와서 미다 나와다 나다 제다 류기 원부 이기 원부 죽게 원부 죽여래 됐을 때네 나줄 강아 리고라서 지나디 나줄 강아 영사기 니디게 가르가르제 세대 공모지 지고다 된마 단나 시신 바위비 원비 권함 다도 송세대
So then, the kind of obstacles we experience to cultivating virtue, such as receiving teachings and then repeatedly over a sustained period reflecting on those teachings, are obstacles of laziness, such as fatigue, dullness, and so forth. The antidote then is to cultivate joyous perseverance. And joyous perseverance we can also understand as having cultivated a deep, heartfelt wish to strive to become the person we long to be, to strive to turn away from our habit patterns which we recognize as harmful, and to cultivate the kinds of mental habits that we know we can and we want to develop within ourselves. So this is another way we can understand joyous perseverance, which is a mind that takes joy or delight in virtue. Then the text continues, with mindfulness, vigilance, and conscientiousness, constantly guard the gateway of your senses. So this couplet then points to that the problems and difficulties that we experience tend to come to us through what we experience through our senses. So Buddhism presents 6 senses. There are 5 of our physical senses, of sight and sound and taste and touch and smell, thank you. So the general 5 senses. The 6th sense is our mental sense. So the mental sense is what we think of. So we're not necessarily seeing something, but we're thinking of what we've seen. We're remembering something or thinking about something we'll encounter in the future. So that's the mental sense. It's our thoughts. So it's through these 6 senses that we encounter our problems. And because of that, we need to guard our mind, take care, or take responsibility for our own mind, guard our mind. And that is what's presented in the first line. We do so through mindfulness, vigilance, and conscientiousness.
징이베들다 원벽고 남송을 자서 원벽고 세디 당한 주기 삼단의 냠녀들 가서 하고 두그래 배는 주기 미기 통로도 미기 찍래 유지래 단에 안 가브렐리아 차바제야다 Gabriel Conricia, and he gets and Migi usually Yomo, but yes, usually that tone, Migli Panangje, and Digin and Anzulia, Conrola, and a kind of Dikin, Mazula Ganga Mongsido, Ligorova, Ganga Mobuligor, Dunga Mobuligore. And they are Amjugi Gochene, Jik Minion Bala Sobata, and Jik Dine Koyo de Gale, and Jik Delia, Conrola, Conric, Majuacha, and it. Denigi Genjin, Shala, Novacia, than Nubi Rashini Kalakamada. Yanchik Nimbora, Bigona, and did sick telet in a Chapa Jage, Chape won't get the Rashini Kalakamatea. Denigi won't be called me, won't be let in it, Denis Dumanoya, Kanga Dini Yungore, Nayu Umbola Dine Kanga Yungore. This one Zugi, Hako, Yamyon Yorwa, that din. And Dinashi, Nayu Umbola Dine, Dimaticale, Dimatic, they do. Timadujara Kenane, Delaba, Timakawi, number Jeda, and the Jajik, Timaya Wokenane, Delia, Chapakia, Andusin, Yomo, Guligo, Desolate Ligore. Then I didn't see roar water, Jiki station, but be roll Yawashu, Yoman, Dela, roll de la Chapakia, Royal Mevachin, Delakin, Makawakia. Then Racha the Lulia, Rapik, Racha, Yon, Yabuchke, Yomba, Delia, in Chapakia, then do a Juna della Makawakia, and Jake Dusin and Anzuki, won't big go, won't bongalatine, Anzuki, and Jike, Dunga Noyada, Dunga Noyada Chasa, Denishu, Yomo Bakia, then Yomo Bakia do, and D. Wonga, Rashin Nigala, Kamatea, Yoyade, then Yungo Regile.
The senses then refers to the mental process as presented in Buddhist psychology. That first one encounters an object, and then in relation to that object, various mental consciousnesses arise. From those mental consciousnesses, physical behavior or verbal communication follows. So this is something we have so much experience of. For example, if we see something, we first see something, then that object of sight appears to our mind, and in dependence on that, variety of thoughts will follow. Either we'll like the object, or we'll dislike the object. So either we'll have attachment towards the object, or aversion will arise within us. Anger, or a lesser form, aversion, frustration, annoyance, will arise within us. And from that, particular physical behavior or verbal communication follows. It's the same with hearing. If we hear something pleasant, then attachment is likely to come. We'll want to hear something like that again and so forth, and we may respond in a similar manner. Or if we hear something unpleasant, a sound we don't like or speech that we don't like, then an afflicted mind such as anger may arise within us. And similarly, if we smell something that's unpleasant, we have a particular mental response. If we smell something pleasant, we have a different mental response. Likewise with taste. If our lunch later is delicious, or if it's not so tasty, from that taste comes a mental response. And from that mental response may follow physical behavior, pushing the lunch away or complaining about it, or praising the chef, it's something fabulous again. And similarly with touch, if we touch a fabric or a surface that is soft and pleasant, there's a particular mental response. Or if it's coarse and unpleasant, there's a particular mental response. So this is the process through our 5 sense powers, and we all have a lot of experience of that, even if we're not so consciously aware of the process of first the object appearing to consciousness, and from this appearance then come various minds such as attachment or anger and so forth.
Digi druya de anzugi digi druya de ombu ko dela tene digi tugore dunga yona de ombu ko dela tene ngore jesa anzugi chaba ina jeju anzugi bene chabe ryacha nyoyo de an dulo tubu an ryacha denigi nyo cheba tene ne ji drele je digi leada di tugoro jesa anzugi leha kare chebe ne jesa da anzulia digi yona de la 원벽이 치유소소데 원보단 대화여 봐서 대래 댐비기 치유소소라 댐네 맞아 원벌이야 배셔당제 아니 가서 디기 주야 지금 거로 봐 근데 치유소소그 술라 댐네 아니 가서 두로고야다 면죄제야다 안지수 원보단 제제 도시네가 디기 주고 다 강아 용야 되래 치유 원벽이 원보 치유원에 소소 때네 원벽이 걸래 때네 안지도시네 제와치네 동아야 될래 되는 거로 봐 세상에서 지상아 저기 직된비게 자와데 가르치고라선 또 원비 걸래 댐비기 치 튕긴 주야다 될래 댐비 디기 주야데 베서서 지고로 봐 당은 저기 빼네 둘로를 마선 빼 둘로 지게 지게 망보 미질이나 지금 저기 지 베서 망보 당고로 봐 둘로를 류레레비게 라자게 둘로 베지다도 한국이네 대디 겸겸 줘야 한국이 디 류제제야게 한국이 디 낭을 줘야게 한국이 디바 안톰 제골 줘도 한국이 세 한국이네 미질이야 지금 망보 휴제 되네게 사고로 지산 디용야 디차사 당한지 변주에 사고로 지산가 레가레야 차사 가르선 사야 동야 두로 거야 조로 망제로 니도나 야야 레고 두고라 지산가 낭 삼로 베제타들 할람 샤라샤라 삼단고 말아 지산가 저기 치용고 차사지 야고 주변에 다 되기 쉬우 용거리했어 강아 차사 세계에 섬고르데 이내야 규천보 쉬우 쉬한데 이내 삼로야 동아 뭐고 강아 뭐고 여들 지사 빅변조 유변조 같이 여반 디기 동아세 투구매 받아 디기 차상 투구매 받아 세고 쉬운 가서 통셔서 겨 봐야 되로
What I've just presented here is something that would be recognized by everyone, whether Buddhist or not, because the pathway to happiness and the pathway to overcome problems and difficulties that ordinary beings, that worldly beings follow, is seeking happiness through the objects of the senses. So, for example, when someone buys clothes, they will choose a fabric that feels nice. No one's going to choose a fabric that is rough, but rather a smooth fabric. Likewise, then later they'll keep using fabric softener to make sure it stays comfortable to touch. And if one looks in one's wardrobe and sees the selection of footwear one has as well as clothes, we can see that in order to achieve happiness, one turns towards objects of the senses. Likewise, with the variety that, in which one eats, to make sure that one is eating something that one is not tired of eating and tastes good, etc., one turns to the objects of the senses in order to achieve happiness. And this is because there is this sequence that there's an object, such as food or clothing, and that becomes an object of the mind through either seeing it or coming through the sense of taste. And in dependence on that, a mind such as attachment will arise, and we perceive this as happiness. We're eating something delicious, and now we are happy. Or we're wearing clothes which are comfortable, and we and look good, and now we feel happy. So this is the general technique that beings in the world, that people in the world engage in to experience happiness or to achieve happiness. But we also know from our own experience that the happiness that we achieve in this way doesn't last. It's fleeting. Hence, we have to keep repeating the process again and again and again. And whatever we buy doesn't lead to lasting, sustained happiness.
당은 저 디기 용야다 대동아 용야데 원부 콜레티 요자 원부 고데 다도 송고고레 세데 대 만족이 년도 발마선나 대 지게 개비 강바다 본부 강부 들리야 고송어 송진의 용주고 말와 두아릭 지가스 고송어 여변에 야가 릭디 아니 지게 야당 바시 지게 뉴견징의 릭디 파가고로 와 제가 원부 지가서 먼저 본부를 마선나 당에 지게 레공다 대니게 본부 치서 되살라 고참래야 구송어 여러와 구송어디 가르치고서네 가르딴 거 말씀 미차사 요마저에 딴가고 말와 미 본보단 저와 이렇게 내가 야고 보면 tum보 이렇게 되게 야다 본보단 저와 메디게 아니 본보래 뇌견체게 리티부터 바까 가서 송세대 가고 와디가 송세 어디 나시 저기 원부 콜이야 만저 판도버리 지용 그래 뇌비리에 망고 그래 저는 진짜 뇌비리 찾아파 숨고 그래 까고 그래 될이야 미기 원벌에 체주교 말했어 저선 체바 있나 아는 아주 공덕계에게 내가 요래 아니 되샤기에 내가 요래서 저선 되는 인자 아니 디께바나 녀모바기도 라신이가라 강아지고 그래 저선 강아지 용 그래 저선 되는 인자 당부 원비 그 고들이와 착바기에 유당 공덕계에게 녀모바기에 유들 봐 유디게 원벌 봐 샤야라 원벌이야 샤마주자 까고 그래서 송고래 다도 송지 기디나 디 샤마주가 저 까고 그래서 그래
Coming to recognize the role that the gateways of our senses play, we will want to constantly guard them. So a guard, here we can think of, say, a security guard or a bodyguard who protects those of some importance, or maybe who just stands outside a venue where access is restricted. And what we'll see with a security guard is that their specific role is to stop many, but still to allow access to certain people. So not everyone is stopped. They don't ensure the building remains empty forever. They allow authorized people inside, but the others who maybe are considered harmful are kept outside, or undesirable are kept outside. Similarly, when we come to recognize, or to the extent that we come to recognize what harms us in the sense that through experiencing it, it leads to afflictions arising, such as attachment and anger, and that this mere arisal of these disturbed minds, such as attachment and anger, are harmful, we will guard our senses against encountering or engaging such objects. And we do so in dependence on the knowledge and the deep recognition that certain objects, certain experiences, lead to problems for ourselves, the arisal of anger, the arisal of attachment, and through that, through the expression then of these minds of, say, anger or attachment, not only are we harming ourselves, but we also harm others. Recognizing this, we will take care to guard our senses well.
다 원부 고송세 되는 간에 송구래라 원부 미글리 샤마제 가르치 그래서 미디 값샤베네 되는 미 값샤나 통구 말데 이네디 디기 ngazo 동화에 망보지 된다 여바디 두고 말와 제가 미 값샤다 암초제 값샤도 송화스네 되네 말해지래 안에 가르 송구디 가르기 송구 그래서도 낭 삼로 땅고 그래 샘게 낭 이기 셰바스 바삼 땅고 그래서 ngazo 원부 고세 원보세 디기 가와 따마다는 아주 나는 삼로다 코 그랬어. 근데 맞아 모자데 가와 좀 말어디 고 난기 모자 땅한디게 라바래. 예를 두고 있는 삼 모자 땅한디게 예를 줘봐는 예를 두고 연두 그래. 눈 코드를 그래. 모자 땅아라. 디나시 아주 삼로 될이야. 될 따고 와서 배 삼로 코나 미디기 배 따고 와. 원버디기 배 숙될 통용 거 샤용 거래. 아 삼로디기 될 따기 매 삼로 찔레바나 삼로 줘봐나 비미디 비기도 유지 통고 말봐. 지난해 아주 자로신이네. 삼로는 니 년기인산 비게 년두기 dum바 삼로 레어도 안 삼로디기 파냐게 원보 델 파철 땅인산 비 삼로 레어도 안 원보들 자냐. 아주 자냐 거래. 자도 고거래. 지사 다 삼로 나래 게 년기 매가 디 년기 매 삼비 삼로 쉬어바나 자디 암철 고고 마 년거 말. 지사 디기 된 리고. 지사 원보 고담 세디 삼로 땅고래 삼로데 가르슨 바위에 된 거래서 바위에 세다 맞아 고송을 맞은 바위에 세대 바위에 세대 가르슨 바위에 봐세대 녀모바 기위 유초라 삼로 이기 삼로디 녀모바 기위 유초라 마삼 삼로 마땅와데 기위초 안현리에 팬바다 라신이가 팬비초라 삼로 땅와디 삼로디라 바위에 세오래 가지 바위에 세대 바위에 봐세대 라신이가 뇌기 유기 초라야 삼로 마땅와체 라신 마땅와들 다 바위에 봐서 되네게 디삼로 땅고 나가 삼로 디코고래 지그래 원부 고송 세디 삼로 디탄고래 원부 디삼 땅바에는 저 고송고래 지래
guarding the gateways of your senses does not refer to closing your eyes, closing your ears. Does not refer to that. Rather, it refers to guarding your mind. As you remember the process of what one encounters, say seeing or tasting or hearing something, one encounters the object and then it appears to one's mind, and then from that various other consciousnesses arise, such as attachment and anger. So what we primarily need to guard is our mind. So just like a car will only go where the driver directs it, so too our mind, which is like the driver of our body, the driver of our senses, has control over where the senses go. And certainly it has control over the extent of the thought process that follows when encountering an object of the senses. So we have some more control over what we see or taste, maybe not so much over what we hear, but our mind is our responsibility, and this is what we need to guard. So for example, if we hear something that is harmful, or we could maybe say that is unhelpful, unbeneficial or unhelpful, then we're hearing the sound or the speech. Our responsibility then is to not mentally engage with that. So not to allow our mind to be overwhelmed in an afflicted way with what we are hearing. So not to become angry, not to become full of attachment for what we are hearing. In this way, we are guarding our mind. And the specific consciousness that we rely on here to guard our mind is that of conscientiousness. So conscientiousness comes about in dependence on the prior knowledge of what is harmful. When one has gathered knowledge and reflected well on this knowledge and come to understand that something is harmful to oneself and through us being harmed is therefore also harmful to others, we know we need to be careful to avoid that. So being careful is being conscientiousness. The consciousness of conscientiousness has the aspect of being careful. And one can only be careful in dependence on the prior gaining of knowledge and certainty with regard to that knowledge that something is harmful for oneself and others. And therefore, we need to be careful. So being conscientious then will enable us to guard our senses because we know that something is harmful.
Dine zang da baoye sedi, jiza baoye sedi, di guguriye sedi, da ngana zugi bene ngana zugi mi nyema ngana zugi mi shende ngana zugi nyobar cheba ina, da ngana zugi digi nyobar cheba di koyo ngana ya nyobar chegyo di, yane yado ngana samlo ya gidi koba ina, yane yado koba ina, 미디어에 야직부 세야다 배 독자르스 미디 균주 제가 삼로데 먼저 기디나 레디고와 제가 데니기 하네 야도 섬다 데니기 소술이야 부스톡보다 강하면 고실리고래 제가 녀마 중 살교 디 데니랴 균에 디기 미녀반에 디고래 삼마다 샤샤바이나 데니 파주 델이야 아니 제게 코너 세야다 셈마기바도 용고마 제데 데니 인자 데니기 톨이야 아니 디 삼당교 말에서 올때 녀마 중 살교 강하다 데니기 지 생기 녀바로 주 제바이나 델이야 야네 야노 삼단에 판도서요 말 데니 인자 안 델이바 삼마다제 파 삼르 디초를 마다제 가고레스 데니 인자 디 강하 마온 그레스 직강하디 베네 미지기 데니기 아니 지게 두스치네가 저기 분위기 다 견주를 집에 독자 랍칸집에 지초를 삼로데 바마다지 만년바 쉬어버네 맞아 고고 말고 마거나 잡로라 가서 마고 잡로라 갈라베니 맞을래 강 콩로기 말에 강아태요 말어 데니 인자 데니기 톨이야 삼마다 바여딘 거래 세디 바여딘 바이나 케벤디 용거래 지삼 두스 강알리디 갑라 맞기 데니기 강알리디 삼로 가르친 것은 바이딩 거래 삼로 디초를 받다 삼다교 말에 삼마다와 샤고래 송고를 다가지데
So to further expand on this consciousness of conscientiousness, if someone has in the past, in the recent or distant past, harmed us, maybe they physically acted in a way that's inappropriate towards us, or they said something offensive or something that we found inappropriate to us, what all too often happens is that after that unwanted event has happened, we repeatedly ruminate over what was said or done. We keep thinking about it. It dominates our way of thinking. And it's not just that we are recalling what was said, but we are criticizing the person, seeing them as a bad person, angry at that person, holding resentment for that person because of what was said or done. So here, in such a circumstance, in dependence on our prior training, our prior teachings and reflection on those, we need to rely on conscientiousness to recognize that this type of rumination is only harmful to us. We are not solving any problem. We are just holding on to resentment, holding on to anger about something that was done some hours, days, or even years before. So conscientiousness here will play the role of us recognizing the harm that this way of thinking is doing us, and then will serve as the basis for us to take control of our mind and turn away from this constant stream of negative thoughts about the person that did this or said something in particular. So what the role conscientiousness plays here is not that it stops our ears from working. We will hear the sound, we will impute the meaning of language onto the words we've heard, so we'll understand the meaning of what has been said. And certainly initially, conscientiousness may not be able to stop the arisal of anger. If we trained well, anger won't arise, but we may still get angry at what has been said. But then conscientiousness can still play the role of cutting the rumination, the constant thought about the constant recalling what was said, and going on and on and on in our minds against what was said. So conscientiousness here plays the role of, if we're well trained, would stop anger arising or be part of the process to stop anger arising. And if we are still in the process of training well, it will play the role of stopping the constant repetitive thoughts about harm that was done to us.
구송화 될 야가다 나신 따도 지게 나신 수익다도 제거는 전 시진이다. 전바의 시진이. 지산 전바의 시진 된제 바유된 바유기 야고 송 공부에 고송야지 바유의 송 바유의 기고래. 바유의 야고 용구도 민도데 전바의 시진 된 거를 다고래. 제 전바의 시진 당도 전바 시진세디 당아도 섬다데 소소 삼로디 가화 초를 조도 민도 따되겠는데 근데 다 괜히 초를 근데 kontra kese yu chola samlo de kogude mindu samlo kogude mindu kogude mindu pa dakandi kogu meba che samlo de kiwi chola pa samlo kogude ge jimen dagarang sha ko pa sha dene gye meba che da samlo di an jige kontra lansa da nyomo ba kesa ge chodle songdu sempige dene du dakane shishin re de ko sobal ma sone shishin da ha go yon lamsa jambadi o de tane ya go yo ma de dagarang de go re sempige dus kaya de jambadi 지산 전바의 시진이디 디니를 때네 아주게 바위에 땡고 그래서 바위에 땡 얘기다 그 쪼어디 전바의 시진이를 때네 바위에 땡고 그래서 수시에마 전바의 변의 시진 삼로디마 녀모밖에 유도 파 줘봐 시진 하고에도 전비람서 어디디 파존의 땅에 야고말 디파 땅교 말스 파 전비 진짜 파 가야 파 마타하지 가야디 전비 가고 그러지.
So I hope that's then a little clearer, the meaning of conscientiousness. Then to look at vigilance and mindfulness. So firstly, vigilance, or as it's often translated, introspection. So this is like either like the security guard who says, you come in, you stay out, or often likened to a spy. So it's a particular consciousness that is always aware of our thought process, or is always mindful of our thought process. So introspection or vigilance plays the role of being aware of what thoughts are arising and determining whether they are wholesome or unwholesome, virtuous or non-virtuous. So this is the role of vigilance or introspection. It's like us having a spy or a leader within us who's saying, this is virtuous and is therefore wanted. This is non-virtuous and therefore unwanted. And then it has a companion, and that is mindfulness. And just to say here, the way mindfulness is used is very different from what is meant in society. In the normal usage of the word mindfulness these days in society. A synonym for mindfulness is memory or recollection. So vigilance is closer to what is meant by mindfulness in society. But what is meant by mindfulness here is that through vigilance, first recognizing that a particular thought process is, for example, virtuous, mindfulness plays the role of recognizing that this is wanted because of all the benefits that come from a mind being virtuous. Similarly, when vigilance or introspection recognizes that a particular consciousness is unwholesome, is non-virtuous, mindfulness then recalls, remembering a synonym for mindfulness is recollection. Mindfulness recalls the faults of this particular affliction, recalls the faults of the affliction, and recalls the antidote to be applied to eliminate the affliction, to free us from the affliction. So that's the role that introspection and mindfulness play in conjunction with conscientiousness.
dine inza da nga zo gom nyamlen kare chebene den shi ni do zo ting go da nga zo gom jawe ne da nga zo do be ting ye ji yu ji la zi ji do se gom ba ne den shi ting go re ji sa yu nga zo samlo ji ben tuen be ku ji le sam da je de le zi ji do sam da de de ka bla ya da shi jin di gi pa samlo de tuen be ku lo ma da wa je shan da ji lo zhou de mi do da de kan ne shi jin re ji sa 대려 샘디 유딜 제지 많이 봐제 셴 직변가 두 삼다고도 대리 갑레리아 소속인 어게 나라야 되네 지 가르치기 나선 비게 어딩이 나라야 지게 샘젠디줄라 가르치기 나선 비 삼로 코르야다 미래가 되네 삼로 코르야 냥아 요르와 지사 되니게 제지도 곰데베 갑라 삼로 셴다도 유딜 마미 봐 셴다 루디 민도다 되겐디 시신들이 지사 시신디기 셴 루고 하고 남상 어데 잠바디기 람산데 잠바디라 모수 라란 딱한 잠바디고 디타나 디기 말씀 비게 잠바디 양자 유데 다하라 미고레 선베 잠비기 유데를 지해디 잠바차고 지사 아주 곰 냠레 내가 제델이야 게주드비야레 덴시진이디 배 조시부 차고다 예심보로 차고 지사 덴시진이기 삼로디 바예디 기위반 콘르게세 유데 녀모게세 율도드에 민도다 시진디겠다 시진야 하고 있는 람산 가제 되네 녀모게세 율을 마당 와지 셈데 아니 도스카바텔라 한 전시진 이게 바예 자나 시신 바예 베슨 덴바다 시진 이기 제네 바예 때에도 원벽고 다도 송고래 원벽고 송고래세 자나 시신 바예베 원벽고는 다도 송세 디송고래 다단달라 바유 세데 다디바 셈뇽모 바제 유 초라 조아디 바유 조아디 파가바딜라 바유서 마조바딜라 셈뇽모 바제 유 초라 마조안 되바딜라 바유 바시고로 뇽모 바제 유를 마송하지 개위 자와 개위 팬비게 제 유를 삼다야디 바유시고와 바가제
These three mental factors, or these three consciousnesses of mindfulness, vigilance, and conscientiousness, are of supreme importance. And they are to be utilized at all times. Whatever virtuous mind you are trying to cultivate within yourself, one relies on these three. Whatever spiritual training one is engaging in, one needs to utilize mindfulness, introspection, and conscientiousness. So, for example, if you're engaging in meditation here, and you're trying to calm your mind, concentrate your mind, still one needs to rely on mindfulness, introspection, and conscientiousness. Conscientiousness plays the role of being careful, one being sure that one keeps one's mind in the virtuous direction through understanding the benefits, and not wanting to go in a non-virtuous direction through understanding the danger that presents. And then in a more refined way, introspection plays the role, or vigilance plays the role, of being aware or mindful of one's thought process. So in the example, one is trying to develop a concentrated mind in meditation. It's introspection that notices that one is no longer, for example, watching one's breath, but is now back at home, maybe wondering what the pets are up to. So it's introspection that notices that. It's then its companion, mindfulness, that says distraction, labels this consciousness as being distracted, and it's mindfulness that says this is faulty, this is against what we are trying to achieve. And here it works with conscientiousness. What we want is a concentrated mind because of all its benefits. So here, with mindfulness and conscientiousness again, we bring our mind back to the object of our meditation, perhaps watching our breath. And once again, we try and have a concentrated mind. So these three, mindfulness, introspection, and conscientiousness, one relies on what one is meditating on, and also throughout one's life, one's daily life, to keep one's mind virtuous. The key, just to, in a sentence, summarize what we looked at today. These three mental factors of conscientiousness, vigilance, and mindfulness are of supreme importance. And these one needs to rely on continuously. So we'll conclude here for this morning, and then we'll continue this afternoon. Thank you very much.